My wife left real estate listing agreements on our bed to show what could happen. I signed them and called the realtor to schedule photos. When she saw the for sale sign on our lawn, she cried it was just a wake-up call about appreciation. I replied I appreciate a fresh start. I walked through the front door that Tuesday evening, already sensing something was off. The house felt different. Too quiet, too staged. My wife had been acting strange for weeks, dropping hints about how I didn't appreciate what we had built together. Apparently, tonight was the night she decided to make her point crystal clear. There they were, spread across our king-size bed like some kind of twisted surprise party. 3 separate real estate listing agreements, each one filled out with our address, our property details, even estimated market values. She had done her homework. The papers were arranged in a perfect fan pattern, as if she were presenting options at a business meeting. I stood there for a moment, tie still around my neck, briefcase in hand, taking in the scene. This wasn't about selling the house. This was about control. This was her way of saying she held all the cards, that she could take away everything we had built if I didn't fall in line with whatever version of appreciation she had in mind. The timing was perfect, of course. She knew I would find them right when I got home from work, tired and vulnerable. She probably expected me to panic, to beg for forgiveness for whatever crime I had supposedly committed against our marriage. Maybe she thought I would promise to be more grateful, more attentive, more whatever she felt was missing. I picked up the first contract. The realtor's name was printed clearly at the bottom. Professional letterhead, legitimate company. She had actually gone to a real estate office and requested these documents. The dedication to this manipulation was almost impressive. My phone buzzed. A text from her. Working late tonight. Hope you find what I left for you. We need to talk when I get home. Classic move. Drop the bomb and disappear. Let me stew in my own anxiety while she maintained the upper hand. But as I read through the paperwork, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, I felt clarity. Instead of fear, I felt freedom. These weren't threats. They were blueprints. She had handed me exactly what I needed, gift-wrapped with a bow of passive-aggressive manipulation. The market value estimates were accurate. The property details were complete. Even the suggested listing price seemed reasonable. She had done all the research for me. I walked to my home office and sat down at the desk. The first contract was already partially filled out. All it needed was a signature and a date. The realtor's contact information was right there, along with a note about their availability for property assessments and photography sessions. My wife thought she was showing me what I could lose. Instead, she was showing me what I could gain. A fresh start. Freedom from someone who thought emotional manipulation was an acceptable form of communication. Liberation from a relationship where love was conditional on meeting impossible standards of appreciation. I reached for my pen. The signature felt surprisingly natural as it flowed across the paper. 38 years old, and I was finally making a decision that was entirely my own. No consultation, no negotiation, no endless discussion about feelings and expectations. Just action. The second contract got signed too, and the third. I pulled out my phone and dialed the realtor's number. It rang twice before a professional voice answered. Good evening. This is Janet from Premier Properties. Hi, Janet. This is regarding the listing agreements for the property at. I read our address from the paperwork. I have signed contracts here and would like to schedule a property assessment and photography session. Wonderful. I can have our photographer out there tomorrow afternoon if that works for you. We also have a market analysis specialist who can do a walkthrough at the same time. Tomorrow afternoon is perfect. Excellent. I should mention, the market is very strong right now for properties in your area. Based on the preliminary information, I expect we could have this listed by the end of the week. That sounds ideal. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair and looked around the office. My diplomas on the wall, my bookshelf filled with technical manuals and industry publications, the family photos that now felt like artifacts from someone else's life. Tomorrow, strangers would be walking through these rooms, evaluating our life together like items at an estate sale. By next week, potential buyers would be imagining their own furniture in these spaces, their own memories replacing ours. The front door opened around 10:30. I heard her heels on the hardwood floor, the deliberate pace of someone who expected to find a broken man ready to negotiate his way back into her good graces. Honey, are you home? I stayed in the office. Let her find the contracts first. Let her see that her little performance had been received exactly as intended. Her footsteps moved toward the bedroom. A pause, then faster steps back down the hallway. What did you do? Her voice carried that tone I had grown to recognize over the past few months. The tone that suggested I was always one step away from ruining everything. I found your message. I called back, still sitting calmly at my desk. Loud and clear. She appeared in the doorway, holding the signed contracts. Her carefully applied makeup was smudged slightly around the eyes. The long day at work had been spent rehearsing this moment, preparing for my reaction, planning her follow-up moves in this chess game she thought she was winning. These were supposed to make you think, she said, waving the papers. They weren't supposed to be signed. They made me think plenty. I turned in my chair to face her directly. They made me think about what I really appreciate and what I don't. She stared at the signatures, as if looking hard enough might make them disappear. You can't be serious about this. The photographer comes tomorrow at 2. Market analysis specialist will be here at the same time. We should have listing photos by Friday. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, anger, then something that looked almost like respect before settling back into indignation. This isn't what I meant, she said quietly. I know exactly what you meant. I replied, not moving from my chair. You meant to scare me into begging for forgiveness. You meant to make me panic about losing our home. You meant to have me wrapped around your finger by the time you walked through that door. She set the contracts down on my desk with shaking hands. We can call this off. We can fix this. Fix what exactly? I leaned back, studying her face. The fact that you thought emotional blackmail was an appropriate way to communicate with your husband? Or the fact that you've been planning this little performance for weeks? The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. She had spent most of the night alternating between silent treatment and attempts at negotiation. I had slept better than I had in months. By 7 a.m., I was dressed and ready for work. She was still in bed, covers pulled over her head like a teenager avoiding school. Before leaving, I left a note on the kitchen counter. Photographer arrives at 2 p.m. Please have the house presentable. At work, my phone buzzed constantly. Text after text, each one more desperate than the last. First came anger. You're being ridiculous. This has gone far enough. Then bargaining. Let's talk about this like adults. I'll cancel everything. Finally, panic. Please don't do this. I was wrong. I answered none of them. Janet called around noon. Just confirming our appointment for this afternoon. I should mention, I've already had 2 inquiries about the property just from the preliminary listing information. The market is incredibly hot right now. That's excellent news. I'll bring our standard marketing package and some comparable sales data. Based on recent sales in your neighborhood, I think we can price this very competitively. After hanging up, I realized I had been smiling. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic about the future. I left work early, arriving home just as Janet was pulling into the driveway. Professional sedan, magnetic business signs on the doors, a photographer's van right behind her. My wife's car was nowhere to be seen. Janet was exactly what I expected from her voice. Mid-40s, confident handshake, tablet already loaded with information about our property. The photographer was younger, efficiently unloading equipment from his van. Beautiful home, Janet said, looking up at the facade. Great curb appeal. The maple trees really frame it nicely. Thank you. My wife has put a lot of work into the landscaping over the years. We walked through the front door, and I was genuinely impressed. Despite her emotional state that morning, she had somehow managed to clean and stage everything perfectly. The house looked magazine-ready. Fresh flowers on the dining room table, all personal items tucked away. Even the books on our shelves had been arranged by color. Wow, the photographer said, already framing shots with his hands. This is going to photograph beautifully. Janet walked through each room, making notes on her tablet, occasionally asking about appliance ages or recent renovations. In the master bedroom, she paused at the walk-in closet. I noticed there's only men's clothing in here. Will the other closet be cleared out before showing? I looked at the empty space where my wife's clothes had been hanging that morning. Every dress, every blouse, every pair of shoes. Gone. It appears that's already been taken care of, I said. For the next 2 hours, I watched professionals transform our home into a product. The photographer captured every angle, every room, even details I had never noticed. Janet measured spaces, researched recent sales, calculated market positioning. When they finished, We sat at the kitchen table while Janet presented her analysis. Based on comparable sales and current market conditions, I recommend listing at $485,000. We should expect multiple offers within the first week, possibly above asking price. That works for me. I'll have the listing live by tomorrow morning. Professional photos should be ready by end of day. I'll also arrange for a lockbox installation so other agents can show the property. She slid a folder across the table. These are your seller disclosures and a timeline for the listing process. Do you have any questions? Just one. How quickly could we close if we get a cash offer? With a motivated buyer? 30 days or less. After they left, I walked through the empty house. It felt different now, lighter. The photographer's equipment had left small indentations in the carpet, evidence that the process was real, irreversible. My phone rang. My wife's number. Where are you? I answered. At my sister's. Her voice was hoarse from crying. I saw the realtor leaving. You actually went through with it. I told you I would. We need to talk. Face to face. I'm coming home tonight. This is still your home until it sells. But the conversation is over. You can't just decide our entire future without discussing it with me. You're right, I said. I should have involved you in major decisions. Like when you decided to manipulate me with fake real estate contracts. Or when you decided our marriage was a game where you held all the power. That's not what happened. Then explain what happened. Explain why you thought threatening to sell our home was an appropriate way to express your feelings. Silence. The listing goes live tomorrow morning, I continued. Janet expects multiple offers by next week. I suggest you figure out where you want to be when this sells. You're serious about this. Dead serious. What about us? What about everything we built? I looked around the staging perfect kitchen, remembering all the meals we had shared here, all the conversations, all the plans we had made. Then I remembered the contract spread across our bed like a declaration of war. You already decided what you thought about everything we built. You thought it was a bargaining chip. That evening, I ordered Chinese takeout and ate it alone at the dining room table. The fresh flowers she had arranged for the photography session filled the air with the scent of new beginnings. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Photos look amazing. Listing goes live at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I have a good feeling about this one. I was drinking my morning coffee and checking emails when I heard the car door slam outside. Through the kitchen window, I watched my wife march across the front yard, stopping dead in her tracks when she saw it. The "For Sale" sign stood perfectly centered on our lawn, professional and unmistakable. Janet's company logo, phone number, and a bright red "Open House Sunday" rider attached below. It looked exactly like what it was, the end of everything she thought she controlled. She stood there for a full minute, staring at the sign like it might disappear if she looked hard enough. Then came the tears. Not the calculated tears I had seen during our arguments, but real, panicked sobbing. The front door burst open. "What have you done?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "There's a sign. There's an actual for sale sign in our yard. Good morning to you too," I said, not looking up from my tablet. Janet works fast. The listing went live an hour ago. This is insane. She paced around the kitchen like a caged animal. You can't just sell our house because you're mad at me. I'm not mad, I replied calmly. Mad would suggest I still cared enough to have emotional reactions to your behavior. This is just practical. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. It was just a wake-up call. About appreciation. About not taking things for granted. I finally looked up at her. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair disheveled from her night at her sister's place, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. This was not the composed woman who had orchestrated the real estate contract performance. I appreciate the wake-up call, I said. I really do. It helped me realize how much I appreciate the idea of a fresh start. You don't mean that. The listing has been live for exactly 63 minutes. We already have 4 showings scheduled for this afternoon and 3 more for tomorrow. Janet says that's unusually fast, even for this market. Her knees buckled slightly. She sat down hard in the chair she had been gripping. You have to call it off. We can work this out. I'll go to counseling. We can talk to someone. We can fix this. Fix what? The fact that you thought emotional manipulation was acceptable? Or the fact that you spent the last 3 months making me feel like I was failing as a husband because I didn't meet some impossible standard of appreciation? That's not what I was doing. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through her text messages from the past weeks. Let me refresh your memory. You don't notice anything I do around here. Other husbands buy their wives flowers just because. Maybe you'd miss me more if I wasn't here. Sound familiar? She closed her eyes. I was trying to communicate my needs. By threatening to leave? By making me feel like our entire marriage was hanging by a thread unless I proved myself worthy every single day? I never said I was leaving. You didn't have to say it. You spread real estate contracts on our bed and disappeared for the evening. What exactly did you think that communicated? She was quiet for a moment. Then, in a small voice, that I had options. There it was. The truth behind all the manipulation, all the games, all the emotional chess moves. She wanted me to know she had options, that she held the power, that I should be grateful she chose to stay. Well, I said, standing up and rinsing my coffee mug in the sink. Now we both have options. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet. Showing request for 11 a.m. this morning. Can you accommodate? I need to go to work, I told my wife. There's a showing at 11. I suggest you make yourself scarce. A showing? Already. Young couple, pre-approved for financing, looking in our price range. Janet says there's serious buyers. She looked around the kitchen as if seeing it for the first time. This is really happening. Yes, it is. What about our memories? What about all the work we put into this place? The garden, the renovations, the way we made it ours. I paused at the kitchen doorway. You turned those memories into a weapon. You used our home as a threat. You made it clear that everything we built together was just leverage in whatever game you were playing. I wasn't playing games. Then what would you call leaving real estate contracts on our bed and disappearing for the night? What would you call months of making me feel like I was failing you no matter what I did? She didn't answer. I have to go to work. Lock the door when you leave for the showing. At the office, I found it almost impossible to concentrate. Not because I was having second thoughts, but because I felt lighter than I had in months. Every time my phone buzzed with an update from Janet, I felt more certain I was making the right decision. 11:15 a.m. Showing went great. Buyers loved the staging and natural light, requesting second showing tonight with their parents. 12:30 p.m. 2 more showing requests for this afternoon. Word is spreading fast. 2:45 p.m. Buyers from this morning want to submit an offer. Can we schedule time to review terms? By the time I left work, we had fielded 8 showing requests and 1 concrete offer. Janet called as I was driving home. This is unprecedented interest for day one. The offer came in at $470,000, with a 30-day close and minimal contingencies. They're serious buyers. What do you recommend? I'd like to see what comes in over the next 48 hours. With this much activity, we might see a bidding situation develop. When I got home, my wife's car was back in the driveway. I found her sitting at the dining room table, laptop open, tissues scattered around her. How many? She asked without looking up. How many what? Showings. Offers. How many people walked through our house today, deciding whether they wanted to buy our life? 8 showings scheduled. 1 offer already submitted. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red and puffy, but there was something else there now. Not just panic. Something closer to understanding. I looked up the listing online, she said. The photos are beautiful. Janet did a good job. She's a professional. The description makes it sound like a dream home. Meticulously maintained. Move-in ready. Perfect for entertaining. It is all those things. She corrected. It was all those things. For us. I sat down across from her at the table where we had eaten thousands of meals, made hundreds of plans, shared years of our lives. You ended that when you decided our home was a bargaining chip, I said quietly. You ended it when you made our marriage feel like a performance where I was always auditioning for your approval. I didn't mean to do that, but you did, and now we're both dealing with the consequences. She closed the laptop and looked around the room. The buyers who came this morning, did they like it? They want to make a second offer after bringing their parents to see it tonight. Their parents. She laughed bitterly. They want their parents' approval before buying our house. At least someone values family input before making major life decisions. That evening, I watched from the front window as a silver Honda Civic pulled into our driveway. The young couple from the morning showing had returned, this time with an older couple who could only be parents. The man wore a polo shirt and khakis. The woman carried a small notebook. They looked like the kind of people who researched every major purchase thoroughly. My wife had disappeared upstairs when they arrived, claiming she couldn't bear to watch strangers evaluate our home. I heard the water running in the guest bathroom, her way of hiding from reality. Janet greeted the family at the front door, all smiles and professional enthusiasm. "Welcome back. I'm so glad you could make it for a second look." The young woman, maybe late 20s, immediately pointed out features to her parents. "This is the kitchen I was telling you about, Mom. Look at the granite countertops and the breakfast nook." Her father ran his hands along the cabinet doors, checking the hardware, opening and closing drawers to test the slides. Good quality construction. These cabinets have been well maintained. I stayed in the living room, pretending to read a magazine while listening to their conversation. It was surreal, hearing strangers discuss the investment potential of rooms where I had lived for 8 years. "The master bedroom has excellent natural light," the mother was saying as they moved upstairs. "And the walk-in closet is a good size for a house this age." 20 minutes later, they gathered in the living room where I was sitting. The young man looked directly at me. "Are you the owner?" One of them, "Yes. We really love the house. It's exactly what we've been looking for. The location, the layout, everything." His father nodded approvingly. "You've taken excellent care of this place. It shows." "Thank you." The mother smiled warmly. "It must be difficult, selling a home you've obviously put so much love into. Are you relocating for work?" Before I could answer, footsteps on the stairs announced my wife's arrival. She had fixed her makeup and changed clothes, but her eyes were still red. She forced a smile as she joined us. "I'm sorry, I was on a conference call," she lied smoothly. "You must be the potential buyers," Janet mentioned. The families made polite introductions while I watched my wife transform back into the charming hostess she had always been with guests. If these people hadn't known better, they might have assumed we were a happily married couple excited about our next chapter. "Your home is beautiful," the young woman told my wife. "The garden especially. Did you do all the landscaping yourself?" "Most of it, yes. I spent 3 summers getting the flower beds exactly right. The roses usually bloom twice a year, and the herb garden by the kitchen window produces enough basil for the whole neighborhood." She was talking about the garden like she would be there to see the roses bloom again, like she still believed this was all some elaborate negotiation tactic that would eventually be reversed. Janet sensed the tension and smoothly guided the conversation back to business. "Shall we take another look at the backyard while the light is still good?" As the group moved toward the patio doors, the young man's father hung back and approached me quietly. "Can I ask you something man to man?" "Of course. Is there anything we should know about the house? Any issues, problems with neighbors, anything that might not be obvious?" I considered the question carefully. He was asking about the property, but I could see in his eyes that he was really asking about the situation. He had sensed the undercurrent between my wife and me, the forced normalcy that couldn't quite hide the underlying crisis. "The house itself is solid," I said. "New roof 3 years ago. HVAC systems serviced annually, plumbing and electrical all updated to code. As for other issues," I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes the most beautiful homes come with complicated histories." He nodded slowly, understanding exactly what I meant without me having to spell it out. Outside, I could hear my wife giving the family a detailed tour of her garden. Her voice carried through the screen door, animated and proud as she described each plant, each carefully planned corner of our backyard oasis. The previous owners had let everything go wild, but I saw the potential immediately. It took 2 years to clear out the overgrown shrubs and establish the new beds, but look at it now. When the showing ended, the young couple exchanged meaningful looks while their parents whispered private consultations. Janet walked them to their car, business cards and contact information changing hands. I stood in the doorway and watched my wife deadhead roses in the fading light, as if maintaining a garden we were about to sell to strangers made perfect sense. Janet returned to the front porch where I was waiting. "They're very interested," she said. "The parents are impressed with the maintenance and location. I expect we'll hear from them tomorrow." "What about the other showings?" 3 more scheduled for tomorrow, plus an open house on Sunday. But honestly, I think this young couple is going to be our buyers. They have that look. After Janet left, I found my wife still in the garden, now sitting on the stone bench she had installed near the rose bushes. "They seem nice," she said without looking at me. "They do. Young, probably newlyweds. They'll fill the house with babies and birthday parties and all the things we—" She trailed off. "All the things we what?" "All the things we talked about doing someday." I remembered those conversations. Late-night discussions about adding a deck off the master bedroom, converting the spare room into a nursery, maybe getting a dog once we had kids to run around the fenced yard. Someday kept getting postponed. I said, every time I brought up those plans, you found reasons to wait. Too expensive, wrong timing, maybe next year. I wanted everything to be perfect first. Perfect according to who? Perfect how? She finally looked at me. Perfect enough that you wouldn't leave. There it was again. The fear that had driven all the manipulation, all the control games, all the impossible standards. She had been so afraid of me leaving that she had made our marriage unbearable. I never gave you any reason to think I would leave. But you could have. Any time. Men do it all the time. They get bored. They find someone younger, someone who doesn't ask for much, someone who thinks they're perfect just as they are. So you decided to ask for everything instead? To make sure I knew how much work I was, how much effort it took to stay married to me. I wanted to matter. I wanted to know that losing me would hurt. My phone buzzed. Another text from Janet. Second offer just came in. This one is full asking price. Cash deal, 15-day close. We need to talk. I showed my wife the message. She read it twice before handing the phone back. Cash deal, she said quietly. 15 days. That's faster than I expected. 15 days to pack up 8 years of our life together. 15 days to start over. She stood up from the bench and brushed dirt off her jeans. I'm going to pack some more things. I should probably stay at my sister's until this is over. You don't have to leave tonight. Yes, I do. I can't watch strangers walk through our house, deciding which offer to accept. I can't pretend this is just business when it's the end of everything I thought I knew about my life. That night, I sat in the empty house reading through both offers while she packed upstairs. The cash deal was compelling, but the young couple with their parents' blessing felt right somehow. They would love this house the way it deserved to be loved, without turning it into a weapon or a bargaining chip. At midnight, she wheeled a suitcase down the stairs and set it by the front door. I'll be back tomorrow to pack more things, she said. Unless you want me to take everything at once. Take whatever you need. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. I really thought you would stop this before it went this far. I know you did. I thought if you saw how serious I was, you would realize how much you had to lose. I did realize that, just not the way you expected. The next morning brought 3 more showings and a phone call that changed everything. I was reviewing the offers with Janet when my phone rang. My mother-in-law. What is going on? She demanded without preamble. Your wife called me crying about selling the house. She says you've lost your mind. Good morning to you too. Don't get smart with me. She's devastated. What kind of man sells the family home without discussing it with his wife? I looked out the kitchen window at the for sale sign. The kind of man whose wife left real estate contracts on his bed as a threat. Silence. She what? Ask your daughter about her wake-up call strategy. Ask her about the contracts she spread across our bed like some kind of ultimatum. More silence. Then, that doesn't sound like something she would do. Check with her sister. That's where she's been staying since this started. After hanging up, Janet raised an eyebrow. Family drama? The usual. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife. Mom called. Thanks for throwing me under the bus. I typed back. I told her the truth. Something you should try. The open house on Sunday brought a steady stream of potential buyers. I watched from across the street as couples and families toured the home, many staying longer than typical for casual browsers. Janet had strategically placed fresh flowers and baked cookies, creating an atmosphere of warmth and possibility. By noon, we had 2 additional offers. By evening, we were in a bidding war between 4 serious buyers. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, Janet said as we reviewed the final offers. The young couple came back with a revised bid that's $10,000 over asking. They really want this house. My wife returned Monday evening to pack more belongings. She looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. For offers, she said. It wasn't a question. 5, actually. Another one came in this afternoon. Which one are you taking? The young couple. Their offer isn't the highest, but they love the house for the right reasons. She nodded slowly. When we close in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. My sister thinks I should fight this. Get a lawyer, claim you're having some kind of breakdown. Are you going to do that? No. She looked around the room. I called my mom yesterday. She said you told her about the contracts. I did. She asked me if that was really what I did. I tried to explain it was just. I don't know what it was anymore. It was manipulation. Yes. The admission seemed to exhaust her further. It was manipulation, and it backfired spectacularly. Did you expect a different outcome? I expected you to fight for us. I expected you to care enough to be angry, to argue, to do something other than just this. I did care. That's why I'm not fighting. She looked confused. Fighting would mean I still believed we could fix this. It would mean I thought you might change, that you might stop using our relationship as a chess game where I never knew the rules. I can change. Maybe you can, but not with me. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. That night, after she left with another suitcase, I called my own family. My brother listened to the whole story without interrupting. She really left real estate contracts on your bed? He asked finally. Like a threat. And now you're actually selling? Closing in 3 weeks. I have to admit, I didn't see that coming. Most guys would have just gotten angry and moved on. I got practical instead. Where are you going to live? For the first time in this entire process, I smiled. I put an offer on a condo downtown. Walking distance to work, no yard maintenance, no memories. It's perfect for starting over. When do you close on that? Same day I sell this place. One door closes, another opens. Literally. Exactly. 3 weeks later, I sat at the closing table watching strangers sign papers that would make them the new owners of what used to be our home. The young couple brought their parents again, everyone smiling and excited about this new chapter in their lives. My wife wasn't there. She had signed her portion of the paperwork 2 days earlier, avoiding the final ceremony entirely. Her absence spoke volumes about how completely she had miscalculated this entire situation. Congratulations, the young husband said, shaking my hand after all the papers were signed. Thank you for taking such good care of this place. We promised to love it as much as you did. I know you will. That afternoon, I closed on my downtown condo. 15th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city skyline that changed dramatically from morning to night. No garden to maintain, no memories lurking in every corner, no ghosts of failed expectations. The movers had transferred my belongings that morning. I stood in my new living room, surrounded by boxes that contained 8 years of shared life, now edited down to just the essentials that belonged to me alone. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. I drove by the house today. There were kids playing in the backyard. I typed back. Good. That's what backyards are for. I wanted to hate you for this, came her reply. But I can't. You called my bluff and I had no cards left to play. It was never about bluffing. I know that now. 3 months later, I was settling into my new routine when Janet called with news I wasn't expecting. I ran into your ex-wife at the grocery store, she said. I thought you'd want to know she's doing well. She mentioned she's in therapy and has a new job. That's good to hear. She also said something interesting. She said selling that house was the best thing that ever happened to her, even though she fought it every step of the way. After hanging up, I walked to my windows and looked out at the city below. Rush hour traffic, people heading home to their own complicated lives, their own relationships that were either growing stronger or falling apart. 6 months after the sale, I received an unexpected invitation in the mail. The young couple who bought our house was having a housewarming party. A handwritten note was attached. We wanted to thank the previous owner who kept this place so beautiful. Hope you can stop by and see what we've done with it. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won out. The house looked completely different and exactly the same. They had painted the front door a cheerful blue and added window boxes filled with bright flowers. The garden my ex-wife had worked so hard to perfect was now a playground, complete with a swing set and sandbox. You came. The young wife greeted me at the door. Come in, come in. We want to show you everything. The interior had been transformed into something warm and lived in. Family photos on every surface. Children's artwork taped to the refrigerator. Toys scattered across the living room floor in that organized chaos that only happens in homes where people are truly happy. We found something when we were cleaning out the master bedroom closet, the husband said, disappearing upstairs and returning with a small box. It was tucked way back on a high shelf. We thought you might want it. Inside the box were photos of my ex-wife working in the garden over the years, documenting the transformation from overgrown mess to the showcase she had created. At the bottom was a note in her handwriting, before and after shots for when we're old and want to remember how much work this took. I studied the photos of her younger self, dirt-stained and smiling as she planted roses and laid out flower beds. She had been genuinely happy then, proud of what she was creating. Somewhere along the way, that happiness had turned into something else, something that needed constant validation and proof of worth. "Thank you for this," I told them, "and thank you for making this house a home again." That evening, I mailed the photos to my ex-wife's sister with a note. "Found these at the housewarming party. Thought she might want them." A week later, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Thank you for the photos. The roses bloomed twice this year, just like I said they would. The new owners sent me pictures. I'm glad the house found a family that appreciates what it has to offer. I'm learning to do the same with my life." I saved the message but didn't reply. Some conversations are complete without words. Today, a year later, I wake up in my condo every morning and make coffee without walking on eggshells. I read the news without wondering what mood I'll encounter. I make plans without checking if they meet someone else's standards of appreciation. My ex-wife was right about one thing. I learned to appreciate what I have. I appreciate peace. I appreciate authenticity. I appreciate relationships built on respect instead of manipulation. Most of all, I appreciate the fact that sometimes the best gifts come disguised as threats. Sometimes the person trying to show you what you could lose ends up showing you exactly what you need to gain.